Hello guys, my name is Martin Istvanovsky and welcome to my Wing Gambit repertory teaser. In this video I would like to give you some insight what lines do I cover in my whole repertory about the Wing's Gambit, and yeah, let's get started. So here we are, e4, c5, b4 is the opening move of the Wing Gambit, and let's see what I cover in my session. Here black has several options, but let's start at the beginning. I think there are two main lines in the Wing's Gambit. One when black accepts both pawns and takes the a3 pawn also, and when black plays d5 in the third move. Of course there are many options for black, but I think those two are the most dangerous, if I can say it's dangerous. I would say these are the main lines, and but let's talk about the smaller lines too. So yes, here black also can play e6. I talk about that in the repertory. Black can play d6, d5, but this is going to transpose to the main line, so it's nothing special. e5, which is extremely interesting because here I give two options for white. One is the very natural knight f3 move, which is kind of natural developing move. But here I also give you an option with f4, which is just an extremely insane move, and it's going to be a mix between the Wing's Gambit and the King's Gambit, so it's like a Sicilian King's Gambit. I'm not really sure that it's absolutely sound, but in a practical game, especially in blitz games and rapid games, I'm pretty sure it's totally playable, and it's a lot of fun. So you can give it a try. Okay, so after e5, I also cover the b6, but these lines, to be honest, in my opinion, are not that dangerous for white. Probably white has a slightly advantage in the most of that. Okay, so let's continue with the most natural continuation for black, which is taking the b4 pawn, of course, and white continues with a3, and yes, here black has the two main options, taking the a pawn or playing d5 in this position, and but of course there are many other smaller lines too. Black can also play e6 here, black can play e5 here, where we can also play knight f3 like what we saw before, but we also have this f4 move, which is going to be kind of the same what I was talking about a minute. And yes, get back until here. Black also has this b3 move, which is giving back the pawn, but in my opinion, if the material is going to be even after the opening, then probably white has nothing to worry about. So in my opinion, it's not a big deal. Black can play knight c6, black can play knight f6. I cover these two, of course. Black can play d6, and now finally we arrive to the main lines, taking the a3 pawn, and now white can take the pawn with the bishop, with the knight, but I offer the d4 continuation, but I cover the other lines too. But after the d4, the idea behind the d4 is that we leave the possibility to take back on a3 with both of our minor pieces, so we don't rush with that, and we will see how black make his setup, and after that we will decide if we take it back with the bishop or we take it back with the knight. And let's get back until here. a3 and d5, probably this is the most popular continuation these days for black, and here it's also pretty interesting that we have two options. White can take the pawn, and probably this is the most popular continuation with white, but I have a suggestion here. I really suggest to have a look on this continuation e5. And the reason is very simple. I think it's absolutely playable. It's a sound continuation, but we can earn this position or kind of similar setups from many other openings. Let's get back until here. So what I'm talking about, e4, if black choose the Scandinavian defense, we can also play e5, and if he plays c5, we play b4, and it's going to be the same what we saw in the Wing Gambit. And also there are some interesting stuff like in the French defense. If black plays a6, we can also play a3 here, d5, e5, c5, and b4, and it's also going to be the same. And we can do this also one more time in the Caro-Kann defense too, c6, a3, d5, e5, c5, and b4. Of course, there are other options for black too. So like it's not necessary, for example, to play c5 here. For black, he can also choose bishop f5, but we can also play something like f4 here and wait until the c5. So I mean, it's not necessary, but it's better to be familiar with these setups, because if you want, you can earn these kind of positions from many other openings. So I think it's just wise to know about this. Okay, and now I would like to go through a game that I was talking about in my blogs and on the social media, but now we will go through together on that. So one of the biggest fan of this opening was my first coach, FIDE master Ferenc Frink, and he was that Wing Gambit was his favorite opening, his favorite weapon, and he played that many times, and he had so many ideas in these variations. And it's really funny because he was never afraid that his opponents will prepare against him. He said it's okay, they can prepare with the engine, but he has much more experience than his opponents. So he was brave enough to play this anytime, whenever he wanted. And in this teaser, I want you to show one of his games against a strong French grandmaster. So Ferenc chose his favorite weapon, the Wing Gambit. Black took the pawn. Ferenc played a3, and now his opponent played taking the pawn. And now, yes, Ferenc liked to take it back with the bishop. I think it's more precise to start with the d4, but to be honest, it's not a very big difference. And now black played knight f6, which is, I cannot say it's something bad, but somehow for my eyes it's not the most natural continuation, because of course now we can simply play e5 and challenge the knight on f6, knight d5, and d4. And if you have a look on this center, it's very typical in the Wing Gambit that we have this very strong center with the d pawn, e pawn, and many times with the f4 and c3 pawns too. And it's going to be like a Sicilian or Pirc defense, but black doesn't have this c7, c5 center challenge anymore from the wings. So now it's kind of hard to do anything with white's huge center. Knight c7. So yes, that's why probably it's not something that I really recommend with black, because that knight already made 3 moves, and somehow it feels a bit strange for me. It's very easy to play this opening with white. That's another very good point for the Wing Gambit, that it's not something that you have to think too much in the opening. You can just continue to occupy the center with the pawns and develop your minor pieces pretty easily. Bishop d3, it's very natural, d5, and knight e2. And here I wanted to show you something that Ferenc used to like to place his knight on e2, and the reason was very simple. He said that he wants to play the f4, of course, and the other knight is going to the f3 square. So of course white could continue with f4, followed by knight f3. But in this case, if you have a look on this position, the other knight will go to d2. But after d2, I do not really see his place on the kingside attack. So probably it's just very smart to put the knight, the first knight on e2, and in this case the other one can go to f3 and join to the battle on the king's side. So knight c6, pretty normal. c3, of course we strengthen our center, and now the d4 is not going to hang anymore. Bishop g4, f3 of course, bishop h5, castle, bishop g6, and h3. For the first sight it may seem a very strange move, but the strategy behind that is very easy. Now in this situation, it's going to be a bit difficult to continue the development for the white pieces, since knight d2 is not playable because d3 is hanging. So white wants to play f4 somehow, followed by f5. But now if we play f4, probably the black bishop can go back to h5 or something like that. I think that was in France's head in this case. So that's why he started with h3, because now white will play f4, and in the next move we will play f5. And of course, if black plays bishop h5, we will have the g4, and it's going to be strong enough. e6. Of course, we take the bishop on f8. Most of the time, by the way, in the Wing Gambit, we take this bishop because in this case, black is not going to be able to castle. And don't forget that in the Wing Gambit, white wants to play in the center and in the king's side mostly. But also we cannot forget that the A and the B lines files are opened up, so it's not that easy to castle to the queen's side for black. So, you know, maybe he has to leave his king in the middle, but he has to decide what he wants to do, because it's not that easy anymore. f4, it's pretty natural. We would like to develop the kingside attack, and of course we would like to build up something like f4 and f5 pawn advance, and you know, I always say that the king in the center, I mean in the middle, are normally safe if the center is closed. But if the center is opened up, then the king in the middle could be very vulnerable. So that's white's plan. We do f4 to open up the center. f5 black played, and now he prepares some king walk with king f7 and king g8. So it's like castling with a few more moves. Knight d2, now we can continue the development. The d3 is not hanging anymore. King f7, knight f3, what Ferenc played, and now what we can say that white is preparing for the assault on the king side, and all of white pieces are getting closer to the opponent's king. King g8, and now white played something really interesting. I just love this move. I'm not sure that this would be the best continuation if we use the engine, but with the practical side, it's just amazing. I really like it's rook a2. What's the plan behind that? It's very simple. Now white puts his rooks to different files. That means it's going to be much easier to connect to the battle with the queenside rook. Now this rook, maybe it can appear on g2 in some day, maybe after g4. So it's kind of smart. I just like that. b5, and yes, this is the typical plan for black, what he can does, because most of the time in the Wing's Gambit the center is closed. White attacks on the king side, so black has to do something on the queen side, and the question is if he's going to be fast enough or not. queen e1. Now, of course, we prepare some movements for the queen, like maybe one time queen h4 or queen g3 after g4 can happen. Bishop h5, king h2. White is still preparing for the attack. Of course, the g4 pawn advance will be the key to get through to the opponent's king. a5, that's also very natural. Black has to do something on the queen side, and of course black wants to exchange some pieces, and he plays where he's strong at. He has the pawn majority at the queen side, so that's pretty understandable that he wants to push the pawns on the queen side. But the question is the same, that does he have time for that or he doesn't? Rook b2, b4. I wasn't really sure about the idea behind the rook b2, but my idea is that Ferenc wanted to force the opponents to play b4, because now the action started and white played this amazing g4. And what I know about this game, that maybe I know because I heard that story from my old coach, that both players had time trouble here. So try to imagine yourself in a crazy position like that with a time trouble. So it's not going to be an easy defense for black, and not very easy to find the best moves for black. He took the pawn, white took back the pawn, the bishop took the pawn, and now a bishop sacrifice on h7 is the second amazing move after g4. And yes, what can black do? He has to take the sacrificed material, of course. Knight g5, and yeah, now it's pretty understandable that king g8 doesn't work, because queen h4 would be strong enough, and it's going to be a checkmate really soon. Or at least, if it's not a checkmate, then in the worst case scenario we can take back the hanging bishop. So black is just losing here. So king g6 was the only move, and white missed something here. Maybe you see it already, but white missed a winning here in the time treble, which would be amazing. Queen h4 is winning, and probably what both players missed, that rook h8 is not playable because f5 check, and doesn't matter how black responds, if he takes with the bishop or takes with the pawn, in the next move knight f4 will going to be a checkmate. But yeah, that happens sometimes in the time treble, but fortunately queen g3 is also enough. It's not mate in 3 move, of course, but the attack will go through. I'm pretty sure about that. Rook check, king g1, queen f8, and another very interesting move. To be honest, if you ask me, probably I would take the bishop, and I would believe in this position, but it's not Ferenc's play. Ferenc liked the difficulty in this position, and he is a kind of a romantic attacker player, he was. So he was going for a checkmate, of course. So he played f5 check. Now black took it with the pawn. Another check on f4. The last piece also joins to the battle. It's only move. Black king has to take the g5 knight, queen e3. And now, if we count everything, black has 2 pieces more than white. And just imagine yourself in a position like that with, for example, 30 seconds on your clock. We can realize that it's not really easy to play with black and find the best defense. Black played rook h5, rook g2, and as I said, like 10 moves before, that was the idea behind the rook a2, that the rooks are on a different file, so they can work together and they are not preventing each other from the movement. So both rooks are doing amazing now. Queen h8, taking the rook, it's a check. King h8, and rook f5, sacrifice once again. So it's not possible, of course, to take the rook because it's checkmate in 1. So black had to go back to g6. Another check. King h7, rook h2, and I think from here it's going to be very easy, because now it's not only that the black king is super vulnerable, but also the material favors for white. So now we have only a few more moves left, and white is going to win. And that was a super romantic and nostalgic game that reminds us why we love the chess, and yes, that was one of my favorite game in the Wings Gambit, and especially from Ferenc. But to be honest, what I can tell you that since he was my first coach, as I mentioned before, that he had many games like that in this opening, and I also I can tell you once again that it was really interesting for me that when I told him that you always play this opening and your opponents can prepare you easily, and he said he doesn't care because he knows this better. He knows how to play this opening. He knows every detail in this opening, and he believed in his opening. And sometimes he could manage to beat really strong players, like in this game, like grandmasters, and I think it's just amazing. So that was the teaser of my Wing Gambit repertory. You can find the whole repertory in a PGN format for €10 and 99 cents. And if I get back good feedbacks, I think I will make the repertory in a video format too. So thanks for watching, and follow me on the social media for more interesting content. See you.